Hey everybody, my name is Marcella with V1 Sports. Welcome to an episode of Teed Up today with Matt Goudie. Matt, how are you doing? How are things?
Things are going well. How about yourself, Marcella?
Going very well. Thank you. Always good to talk to you, see your face, and talk technology and golf.
Absolutely.
Why don't you give our audience a little background of yourself if you can, kind of lead into your, over 15 years that you've been at Lancaster?
Certainly. So my name is Matt Goudie. I am the Director of Instruction at Lancaster Country Club in Pennsylvania. I started here as a PGM intern. I went to Methodist University, graduated from there in 2008, and I've been here ever since. Started as an intern, kind of an entry-level assistant position, continued up through the ranks, first assistant for a number of years, really developed a passion for teaching, and got to the point in my career where I basically knew I wanted to teach full-time. And having a boss that gave me the opportunity of a lifetime and a club that has taken a chance on me, I became the first director of instruction that we've had here, and it has been going great ever since.
Right? No signs of stopping anytime soon, right?
Absolutely
Um,
not.
that's great. They're lucky to have you there for sure. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into my questions because we're
Sure.
talking today. Our topic is coaching and mentorship,
hmm
which I think is great, and especially in these days at this day and age because of so many changes that are going on. So, of the 15 years you've been at Lancaster, 11 of those you've been using V1 Sports. Is that right? And
At least, yep.
okay. And so, what's the difference from when you started at Lancaster, when you started coaching from that?
Um, so biggest difference, I would say, when I started out, I was actually using V1 a little bit, not through mobile app and all that type of stuff. But I remember when I first started, we had this big portable camera through V1 that we would do videos through, and it was video analysis has gotten so easy. I mean, everyone has a phone in their pocket, everyone has an iPad. Throw in the pressure mat as an added tool, but it has become a very useful tool, and a very simple tool to use. I remember the days where people had the camcorders with the little mini cassette tapes in
Oh,
it.
yes.
Was
Firewire, right?
it was a different world back then, but it's amazing where things have come, and cell phones have completely changed the game, or just the mobile devices in general. And
Absolutely.
I think all sorts of technology has just changed golf instruction in the last 10 or 15 years significantly. There's a much greater understanding of how the body moves, why the body moves, and being able to quantify those gains that we're getting with students has made instruction so much more effective.
Right. And in a useful way, not just the numbers game, but actually using it to help dig in and develop and really see what's going on, right? So
Absolutely. Yep.
that's awesome. So when you back then, did you find yourself exploring new technologies as a young coach when you first started versus some of your older counterparts? Like just because of day and age, were you in there more looking after technology?
I was always intrigued by it. So when I was down at Methodist, I was doing a lot of our club repair for the students, helping with a lot of the club fittings. And I remember, I think it was called Vector, but a company donated a launch monitor to the program. And it was the coolest thing in the world. First thing we ever saw. And from that point, it always kind of intrigued me, what was out there, how it can help people. I would say the last 5 years is when I've really started to embrace technology a lot more. And I was always kind of the idea of, technology is great, but you only really need video. And the last few years, because I've become more familiar with it and have started using it a lot more, I've taken a completely different approach or perception to that topic. I feel at times that the idea that you don't need the technology and that it's a waste of money is people justifying not buying it or not making that investment. But I think that there's a lot of value in any type of information. And if you're trying to differentiate yourself as an instructor and all you have is a cell phone where the guy down the street has a launch monitor and a pressure mat, that person down there has a much higher perceived value regardless of the rate and experience, just because of that technology. And we're in a technology age. I mean, no matter what you do, we are fed with data constantly.
Yeah.
Whether it's your car, your phone, anything, we get data constantly. And being able to incorporate that in a constructive environment into golf instruction is extremely crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, speaking of, video, we have backup cameras now, right? We didn't used to have backup cameras in our cars now, but so
Exactly.
what was your experience with video? Maybe, I don't know, personally or when you first started, what was your experience with it?
I always liked it a lot. I've always been a visual person. I'm the type of person, if I read directions for something, let's say I'm putting something together, I might read the directions 5 times and I'm like, wait, what did I just read?
Mhm.
Whereas if I can go to YouTube and watch a video on how to do something, I'm going to understand it a lot better. Now, recognizing students learn differently is also a very key tool to have. I have students that as soon as I get my iPad out, they cringe because they don't
Mhm.
want to see their swing on video. They become camera shy. And being able to recognize that and tailor your instruction to your student is extremely important. But there really haven't been many times where I feel that video has hurt the lesson as long as it's used constructively. One thing that I've learned over the years, and there are a few students that I can think of off the top of my head, that as soon as I get the iPad out, they grab it out of my hands and they start looking at things beyond what we're talking about.
Mm.
And being able, that's kind of where I was coming with saying to use it constructively, being able to use that video constructively where you can control what they're looking at. You can make sure that they're seeing or focusing on what you want to see is extremely important.
Yeah.
It can be very simple to, or very easy to waver in other areas. So I think it's been very important to be able to be consistent with your message, being able to really focus in on the details you want to show them.
Exactly. And that's a great part about V1 with your, recording lesson feature, right? You're
Mhm.
in control when you hit start record and what you're focusing on, what you're honing in on. Highlight those areas, use the drawing tools to point it out, hit record, hit send, and then they can retain that information by rewatching that lesson, right?
Exactly.
But you're keeping them on course, right? You're not looking at other things, and we're not picking out other things down the line. We're sticking with what the current, thing we need to fix is, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, that sounds amazing. I mean, how exciting, like being somewhere for so long and incorporating all that together is, the course of 15 plus years. And then stepping into a new role and continuing to grow the club with you that way is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
I bet. I bet. Well, we'll keep pushing and exceeding that technology, and hopefully come out with some new stuff for you soon too. Her too.
Sounds great.
Okay, so that's the coaching side of things. Let's jump over to the mentorship side of things.
Yes.
How have you seen mentorship change in the game of golf?
So within the business standpoint, I'll kind of look at it from the pro to pro standpoint, but also the pro to student standpoint, because I think there's two very different types of mentorship going on. Pro to pro, it has certainly changed in some aspects. I think people look at other professionals as mentors this day and age when they don't actually have personal relationships with them. And mentoring can be so many different things. In my opinion, mentor is someone that has any type of impact on your career.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a number of friends that I haven't worked with, but I could call them up in 10 minutes and we could have a conversation about my career, and I will trust every bit of advice they give me. Dustin Wallace, Nick Iacono are two good friends of mine that both have, over the past few years, as I've made this transition to teaching full time, have continued to become good advice givers.
Yeah.
We're constantly sharing ideas. And while they might not be, a head professional that I'm working for, I look at them as mentors at times because they are in a similar situation to myself. Dustin helped me on my own swing for a couple of years, and being able to have that relationship with another professional is awesome. And I think that being able to do that myself, there have been some professionals that I've worked with, there are other guys on our staff here, and being able to offer any type of mentorship thing is so big. It brings value to people's employment, and we're in a day and age where it can be hard to get golf professionals to come work at clubs. There's
Yeah.
no secret to that issue. And as an instructor at a facility, if you can help them to enjoy their own games more, all of a sudden they enjoy working more, they enjoy playing more, and then they may stay at the club longer or just enjoy their job more. And I think there's a lot that, as an instructor, that you can really bring to the facility as far as mentorship, even if they're not direct subordinates of yours.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with that. A big fan of the no silos in all areas, and having advisors of all the kind of the best minds can put their heads together and make the game in general better in each other. So I love that. Sounds amazing. So with that being said, how would you like to see mentorship change?
One of the hardest things that I found once I got in the business is connecting with people. And that's where I was saying earlier, as far as social media and things, kind of allowing people to learn from each other and almost develop some of those mentorship relationships without really being in person. There have been some professionals in our area, and I mentioned Nick Iacono earlier. Watching what he's done the last couple of years as far as educating other professionals is, I think, one of the biggest honors that someone can have. Being able to do this type of conversation with yourself, just being able to have an impact on people, whether they're seasoned professionals, PGM students, 3 years into the business, you name it. Anything that we can do to help each other should be viewed as mentorship. And it doesn't have to mean you're having breakfast once a month. It can be as simple as some Instagram conversations back and forth, or just helping them if they have a tough student they're not seeing the success with and they want a second opinion. Anything that we can do to help each other out helps the business as a whole. It's easy to say we're in competition with each other, but ultimately we're not. We're at our own facilities. We're teaching our own students, and the better we all look together and help each other, the better the business as a whole will be.
Right. Absolutely. Especially through the video, right? It takes a simple share and a simple question. It's almost like an internal, you can call it internal, like you said, you're not the same club, but pro to pro. Hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because your ultimate goal is to not lead your student the wrong way, right? And so sometimes you just need that backup or that advice, and lean on your friends in the industry. And yeah, I call that a mentorship, an advisor, and mentor. So I think that's great that you can do that and you have those people in your corner.
Yeah, and I would also say, just an advice for, we'll say, PGM graduates. It's so easy to look at, oh my gosh, I get to go live in Hawaii, or oh my gosh, I get to go live in California. And not that location isn't important, but developing relationships with professionals especially throughout the PGM ranks as you're doing these internships, but especially early in the business, networking is so big. Getting yourself out there, playing in section events, getting to meet people. Lancaster is somewhat removed from Philly. We're about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half from Philadelphia proper, for lack of a better term. And at times we can feel a little bit disconnected from your Philadelphia clubs. Right. I was always pretty active playing wise. It allowed me to meet a lot of professionals that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And being able to get out and meet people is huge. The reason I'm at Lancaster, our director of golf, Rick Gibson's been here for, 25 years probably. That continuity, that stability, and someone that the membership respects is such a awesome position to be in or to work for. And being able to have that right boss that's going to take the chance for you or going to help you in your career can be so impactful as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that, especially with where I work at V1 Sports. Great team and organization and leader here too. So I feel absolutely the same way. It goes across the board and not just in golf, right?
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Definitely lucky to have him there too. Okay, let me move on to my next topic here. We've heard you talk about fireside chats of type of mentorship. Can you explain that a little bit to me?
Yeah, I think really any bits of pieces of information or surrounding yourself with better people. That's a term you hear all the time, is surround yourself with better people. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that just because you're walking down the street with Ken Griffey Jr. means you're going to be a better baseball player. But if you're able to surround yourself and have interactions with people that you respect in the industry, that can be huge. This past winter, I was at the PGA Teaching and Coaching Conference or Summit down in Orlando before the PGA show. And I was having lunch, and there were a number of people that I would call top teachers at our lunch table. Nick Iacono, I mentioned him, Joanna Coe. There were a couple instructors from Caves Valley, and we got into this conversation and about footwear and golf. And I'm pretty sure we got back to the seminar late because we couldn't stop talking about it.
Right.
And it was all 100% based off ground pressure. We all were teaching with it significantly. And we were all talking about students that we had where our footwear, or we saw major results with the students just by changing footwear, and in our own games as well. And that was something that I kind of arrived on my own. And at times it can be hard to be confident about things that you derive yourself. There are people that find that much easier, but all of a sudden I'm sitting at a table with people that I respect tremendously, having the exact same experience that I did. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, I was right. And that's a good example there of you're able to become more confident in yourself when you share ideas with people, when you see that other people have those same types of ideas. And that's the type of fireside chat or mentorship type of things. I mean, we had a Philly PGA, we call them Coach's Corner, but just kind of like a panel discussion. It's an open discussion this morning for, I think there were probably around 20 professionals on it. And just being able to spend an hour with someone like John Dunnigan as he shares his thoughts on things. I mean, that's an invaluable hour, and you never know what type of tidbit John Dunnigan's going to spit out that's going to make you realize, man, I'm doing things right, or wow, I never thought of that. I need to incorporate that into my own instruction. So absolutely. I think just those types of relationships, little tidbits, can be so instrumental.
For sure. The fireside means everybody gather around, right? Like, come chat, let's talk. And like you said, if you're not there, you might not have picked up on that, and that could have been a game-changing experience for you. So surround yourself with good people around that fire, talk about it, prove it. And that's where we can use V1 to prove things. Here's your video. Well, I'm not making this up. This is what we're seeing. Here's your pressure. This is what you're feeling. This is what's really happening on the ground. And we can connect those two things together, along with physically what you can do. What shoes are you wearing? There's a lot to put together, but having it all kind of come together, talk about it with your peers, that's the best way to do it, and make sure that you're on the right path in your coaching experience. So I love that. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to go, kind of from old school fireside chat over to new school with social media. Mm-hmm. How have you seen social media change things in mentorship or even in coaching?
So in coaching, I joke, it used to be, I read this in Golf Digest, or I saw this in Golf Digest and this is what I'm trying to do. Now it's, I saw this YouTube video or I saw this Instagram post. Mm-hmm. So I think one thing is being able to make sure that your students stay consistent can be tricky. And that's where lesson video follow-ups can be huge. Social media can be an invaluable tool for building a brand, sharing information, developing students, developing a client base. Different people at different clubs with different situations may or may not be able to post as freely. And that's something that I think some teachers deal with more so than others. So it's not always a tool that everyone can use the same way, but I think that there are creative ways that you can really, like I said, boost your brand, increase your client base, and just be able to share information. I would say any teacher that is not at least on Instagram, not even from a posting standpoint, but just gathering information, is missing out on a tremendous opportunity to learn. The amount of things that I have learned just from reading Instagram posts and having a conversation with someone about it, or different programs that people are promoting, there is so much information out there at your fingertips, and that you can sit there when you're watching a football game and you can just scroll through Instagram and all of a sudden it's like, wow, Dustin Wallace just did this clinic. I never thought of doing that clinic. And it allows you to share information or gather information that other instructors are doing positively or successfully without having to necessarily be in person or have that conversation with them. And not that those relationships aren't beneficial or useful, but I mean, time is valuable. And if we can spend 20 minutes just gathering information a day from other instructors without having to drive an hour to go visit them, it allows us to be a lot more efficient in gathering that information.
Absolutely. That is key. That in person is very powerful, but sometimes let's use current technology to our advantage, and social media is a platform to be able to do that. But obviously there's kind of a vetting process. There's a lot out there. So like, how do you really hone in on what works well? Well, I would assume you would test those theories with video, with pressure, right? Mm-hmm. And you can also use V1 sort of to speak internally, almost like pro to pro. You guys can send lessons to each other too, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So that's one way to do it. So speaking of pro to pro, I know you've definitely told me a few good, a lot of them already, but who were your mentors or who are your mentors?
So I mean, Rick Gibson, our director of golf, I've worked for him for 15 plus years. Certainly the biggest mentor I have. When I was down at Methodist, I worked for Bernie Crick. So any Methodist people on here probably know that name. He kind of gave me my first real introduction into club repair. And I learned so much about club repair, club fitting from him that I still use to this day. Anytime we have tough club repair at the club, they come to me, and it's things that I gained from him. I learned a lot about being a professional, and he was certainly more of an old school professional. He's probably, I forget how old he is. I saw him at the PGA show this year, but I mean, he's up there in age, and he's been retired from the business for quite a while. And his son is a professional as well. He's over at White Manor, not far from here. And just seeing the way that he developed his son into a successful professional as well says a lot. Tom Anchauskas took over for him. He became the women's golf coach as well, and I learned an awful lot about him. Never a dull moment. He was a blast to work for as well. And then some friends that have had some big impacts on me: Dustin Wallace, Nick Iacono, shared some things with John Dunnigan at times, and some other guys that I come in contact with and just have conversations. I can't necessarily think of everyone, but
right,
having those relationships or those networking opportunities are so valuable. They provide so much to your career that you won't learn in a textbook. You won't learn really anywhere but being able to interact with those people. And it's amazing. You might think you're the only person dealing with what you're dealing with at your job, and you talk to a friend about it, and all of a sudden they say, that was me last month. Or this is what I would do, and you may not have ever thought of that solution. So I think just having relationships with people in similar positions is such a crucial piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so, and you kind of floated this too. We're coming close to the end here to wrap it up, but I want to a little dive in more on how is working with your students and coaching kind of similar to mentorship, right? Like you're kind of a mentor to your student in a way, right?
Yeah. So, and I think, so I'm a big believer, if you're teaching, it is a very valuable thing for you to be playing as well. And I'm not saying you have to, but there are a lot of teachers that say, well, I'm too busy, or my lesson book's too busy to play and I can't compete. And I understand there are a lot of really good players out there that they play a lot of golf and they're tough to beat, but being able to involve yourself in that process yourself helps you to relate to your students. And this is especially valuable when you're dealing with people looking to play competitively. Working with juniors, especially high school kids, they are looking for someone to coach them beyond their swing. They might not admit it, they might not know it, but if you can help that high school player become a better player, but enjoy it more, they're going to play better. And that's where I really enjoy the instruction side of things, is being able to help people enjoy it more. Not controlling their minds necessarily, but basically getting in their head, becoming more of a coach, less of a swing coach. Being able to help them understand how to practice, being able to help them understand how to warm up before a tournament. So there's a lot of valuable mentorship that goes on. And I think that that's where it's very valuable to play yourself. So when I'm teaching, I try not to get into, if I'm hooking it, this is my fix, because our bodies are different, swing differently. That's not necessarily relevant. However, I had a lesson with a girl recently, and she had a kind of a tough-ish tournament. And that same week, I played in our section championship, and I had probably the two worst putting rounds I've had in 10 years. And she was very discouraged. We sat in the cart. I told her my story, and she kind of chuckled. And she starts to realize it's not going to go away. We're going to have our good days and our bad days. I don't care if you're Bryson DeChambeau, Rory McIlroy, or Matt Goudie. You're going to have your good days and your bad days. It's how do you handle the bad days? How do you bounce back from the bad days? And how do you bounce back from the bad shots? And if you're out there competing yourself, that helps you relate to the students much better, and really helps you to be able to essentially help them understand the process of playing competitively. So that's, I think, probably the biggest side of mentorship that you can really get. I mean, instruction in general, you can have a tremendous impact on people. I think that's the unique side of it, and that's what I love about it so much. We're in the business of helping people have more fun. How many people can say that with their job? I got a text message from a mom a few weeks ago, and she basically said, "Thank you so much. You helped so-and-so have fun with golf again. She shot 75 at her last tournament, and it was the first time she's ever broken 80, and she's really enjoying the game." And I mean, those text messages are why we do it.
That's what it's all about. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep. I'm currently coaching 12U girls soccer for the first time. But you hit a lot of notes there. Like, I'm maybe not the best coach yet because I just started, but for me, it's about mentoring the girls, making sure they're still having fun so they come back next season and they still want to play. Even if we can just get a little bit better each practice or each game, that's what it's all about. And, I played, and when I'm out there at practice, I'm not a coach that just sits there and yells and shouts. I'm in it with them. I'm playing D and while trying to get the ball away from you to show you that I'm in it too. So
right. And I have a little analogy I use at times, especially with kids. So if you're training a dog to do something, and not relating kids to dogs, but there's a lot of parallels there. But if you're training a dog to do something, one of the biggest things, especially a puppy, that you want to do is whenever you're doing a training session, you always stop when the dog wants to do more. So that way the dog does not associate that training session with being tired, being worn out, not wanting to do something. They want to do it even more the next time. Yeah. And this is just kind of almost a little tidbit for parents and kind of that mentorship relationship. But being able to make sure that junior golfers especially are having fun, but they want to keep doing it. Hitting balls for 4 hours for some kids might be fun. There aren't many kids that are going to enjoy that, but being able to make sure that when they're practicing, whether you're incorporating games, you're getting them on the golf course, but being able to help them to understand how to practice so that they leave wanting to do more is so crucial for being able to develop players like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Okay. Well, I'll leave one more question and then I'm going to let you go for the day, get back to work. Right. Do you have a coaching philosophy that you stick to?
I would say my biggest coaching philosophy is understand how the person works, understand why they work the way they do, get the data, and then figure out the best course of action for that student. I am I don't say a very simple instructor. I don't like to get very technical in things. And my thought process is the technicalities are for my mind. I need to give them basic terminology. You're not going to go to your auto mechanic and ask them to explain why every little valve in your motor is not working properly. They're just going to say, hey, you need to get your valves fixed. Being able to put it simply for people's mind is huge. I went through TPI certification, and that coupled with the pressure mat, absolutely the biggest impact on my career. It gave me so much more of a knowledge as to why we swing the way we do, how our bodies move, how to work around issues with people, that's really kind of molded my philosophy to be a little bit more of it's almost like you're molding clay with everyone, and you start with the ball with everyone. And some person you might make a coffee cup, someone else you might make a plate. But you look at someone like John Rahm, people are probably fairly familiar with him and his story, but he was born with a club foot. And from what I understand, they break your foot the second you're born so that it can grow properly. He has limited ankle mobility as a result, and that's why he swings the way he does. If you tried to teach him to swing like Bubba Watson, he'd probably be playing Saturday morning games at a private club somewhere if he even played golf.
Right.
And it's just being able to understand how people move, why they move, but then also measuring so that you can quantify improvements using a pressure mat, using video, using a launch monitor. There's so many tools we have out there that can really help you to relay a lot of that to students.
Absolutely. Okay. So it sounds like it's physically screen the person first, make sure we know what they can physically do, not to injure them, right? Can you supinate? Can you pronate? Let's make sure we have those things down. Then we can look at the video, we can look at the pressure, and we can gather a great assessment to really help out the player.
Absolutely. That's
awesome. Well, that sounds like a great coaching philosophy to me. Sign me up. I'm coming to Lancaster.
Perfect.
And I'm sorry for calling Lancaster. That must be a California thing because we have that out here too in Lancaster, California.
Yeah, we're certainly the Lancaster.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'll get that down. All right.
all the time.
Well, thank you so much for all your time today and answering questions about coaching and mentorship. And it's really a side of the game I don't think we talk about as much, and we should more. So I really appreciate you putting your thoughts out there and spending the time with us today. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
All right, Matt. Well, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.